and we are very pleased today to welcome Polina Pompliano to discuss her journalism career. And it's an amazing career. And she does something that she has done something. She's achieved something that a lot of people who are on this call would love to do themselves, which is to have had a very successful career with a series of prominent publications, and then to take the big leap into working for herself and succeed in that as well. So you're a role model for all of us, Polina. Thank you very much for joining us.
Of course, I'm excited. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. And you're usually on the other end of these as the interviewer, so it's got to be interesting for you to be an interviewee.
Very different experience.
Right. So, I mean, there are a lot of different ways we can go with this, but I think maybe the best is just to have you uh, tell us a little bit about, just run through your history in journalism, the different publications you worked for, the decision you made, and how it's gone.
Perfect. Yeah. So very quick background. I was born in Bulgaria. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia when I was 8. And then I joined my high school newspaper as a writer. And that's kind of when it all started. I knew the second that I started interviewing people and writing, I knew I wanted to major in journalism. So I went to the University of Georgia, majored in journalism, became editor-in-chief of the college newspaper there. Then I worked after graduation, worked at CNN and USA Today as a freelancer. And then I moved to New York, worked at a media startup here in New York. And then I joined Fortune magazine as first the social media editor. And then I started writing, and I started writing tech stories, eventually wrote the daily deal making newsletter called Term Sheet at Fortune. And I wrote that for like about 2 years. And then in March of 2020, I decided to leave to go full time on my Substack that I had started in February of 2017. And I just did it for myself. I was like, I really like this super niche specific thing, which is reading long form profiles. And I really believed in long form, in-depth, like real journalism. Peter, my major in college was newspapers. Like so much has changed, huh?
Yeah,
Like straight up
yeah.
newspapers, not journalism. Um, so I was writing term sheet for Fortune every single day during the week, Monday to Friday. And then I would write my newsletter, The Profile, which curated several long form profiles. And I would publish that every Sunday. So the only day I was not writing a newsletter was Saturday.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And yeah, like I decided to leave in March of 2020 because I started seeing this thing. It was the rise of the passion economy, and people were just kind of like talking about the fact that people trust people and not necessarily these large media organizations. And I had seen that firsthand writing Term Sheet because I don't know how many people went to fortune.com every day, but I know that my name in that newsletter landed in their inbox every single morning. So they started to feel kind of like a friendship or relationship with me, and they started to
Yeah.
trust my voice. And therefore I was like, I think this is the direction the world is going in, and I left to do my Substack full time in 2020.
Right. Very nice. I have some similarities with you. I was also editor-in-chief of my college
Ah,
newspaper,
which
Cornell
one?
Daily
Oh,
Sun.
Cornell. Oh, yes. A
And
formidable competitor.
right. And then I also had a newsletter I wrote for the New York Times opinion section up until about a year ago. And it was a similar experience in that I really enjoyed it because of the interaction with the readers. I mean, there were certain people who would write to me after almost every issue with some
Yeah.
kind of comment. It's like they're my pen pals.
Yeah.
And I tried to read all the mail I got.
Same.
Um,
I try to respond to everybody who took the time.
that is a lot of work, by the way. Tell us about. why you chose to do that and how much work is involved in just doing that simple thing.
Yes, I forget who said it, but it was like the difference between an audience and a community is which way the chairs are facing. So I
Mm,
didn't want to just write this email newsletter and like go into the ether. I wanted a true community where you could host meetups, you could meet the people. I went to San Francisco to work on a story, and like I met some of the readers in person. And the reason when I started writing Term Sheet, like I took it over from some very, very hefty, respected writers. And I knew that nobody had any clue who I was. They didn't like, why should we listen to you? Which I understood, right? So I started doing a series like every Wednesday, Q&A with the deal maker. That way I started meeting these people. Then I started responding to every single reader email because I knew that if you took the time, and a lot of it was criticism in the
yeah,
beginning, and like
yeah,
you took the time to write in and tell me that you don't like my voice, I got whatever wrong, I misspelled whatever word, at least you care enough to do that. So
right,
it was my obligation. I saw it as an obligation to respond to you and be like, you know what, like that's a good point. Let me try this. And I think it meant a
yeah.
lot to people.
Well, I found that the most useful thing is that you want to make sure there's not a mistake. And sometimes people would point out a mistake, and that you cannot afford to miss.
Right.
Some of the comments which are more opinion, it's like, okay, what do I
Yep.
say about this? Especially if it's a really flaky comment, how do I even react? What do you do with that when somebody comes in with something totally out of left field?
Oh my God. Well, of course, you have to like understand, you have to understand what the intention behind it is. If it's something like, you do this, you interview people, you do video. When I first started doing video, like on the internet, people would comment like, I don't like your jawline. And I'm like, well, there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. So thank you very much. But I think like the spirit with which I once heard someone say like when you somebody criticizes you, the first thing you should do is accept that it's true. And if you
Uh,
accept that it's true, then from there you can be like, okay, I've heard this enough times. Maybe we make a change. When I first started writing Term Sheet, it was at a time when a lot of the tech reporting was a little bit snarky and a little bit like making fun, like we're too good, all of this stuff. And people responded with multiple people said, I don't like your voice. It sounds very juvenile and kind of poking fun at something like, why are you doing that? This is a
yeah,
professional newsletter, you know. And
yeah.
these were serious people who were writing in. So I was like, oh my God, this is not the audience. This is not the time or place to do that. So I really professionalized the tone. And something as simple as tone can make such a huge difference.
How would you describe your tone then?
Well, it depends. So, with the profile, the thing that I write, I have professionalized it a lot. I started that thing when I was like 25.
Yeah,
Um, but looking back, like it was very juvenile and it was a lot more personal because at first I was only sending it to family and friends. Over time, as it grew, I've definitely changed it a lot, but the tone has matured with me. But it's really cool to see kind of like every stage of life, almost like a public ledger of what you went through.
yeah. So I think what you're talking about with tone is you're not, you don't want to be snarky.
Right.
You want to treat people with respect
Hmm.
and adult. And, it may not be as fun in some ways, but you'll be taken more seriously by both your subjects and your audience ultimately.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do that without being sarcastic, like in my profiles now when I profile people, I will point out inconsistencies in what they say versus what I've observed or what we've seen them do in the past,
Yeah.
but I'll do it in a way where it's like wink, wink, nod, nod, like not as obvious as like I'm just gonna be sarcastic
Yeah.
in my
And
voice.
another thing that I want to ask you about is over the years, I guess when I was starting out in journalism, I had more of the feeling like I would try to catch people saying something, like revealing something about themselves that they had not intended to reveal.
Mhm.
And over the years, I got much more in the attitude of I'll just give them all the chance in the world to take things back and say it the way they want to be seen. Um,
Uh-huh.
how do you feel about that? I mean, I can see both sides of that.
Yeah. Okay. So, I do both. So for example, I wrote a profile on Ryan Serhant, who is a real estate mogul in New York City. He is building this real estate firm as a founder, an entrepreneur, and he just raised some venture capital. But he's very online. He used to have a Bravo show. He has a Netflix deal. He posts a lot on social media. His image is very much one of um like a golden retriever, very charismatic. People love him. He's easy to like. And I read his books in doing research for the profile. I read his books. I watched interviews. He comes across as really likable. So going into it, I thought, like this was him. But then when I got to spend time with him, and I think this is one thing that like media organizations have really like dropped the ball on it. Like it used to be that you would go in person, you would follow the person around, you would do
Mhm.
something, you would see how
Yeah.
they move through the world. And when I saw that a lot of it was performative, and I was like, oh, I'm going to see this mask drop,
Yeah.
I saw that he is very much fueled by revenge, which is not a
Mm.
very nice, charismatic, likable
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that that was really interesting. He knows that about himself, but it's just the public has not seen that. So I
Right.
showed that, contradiction. But I agree with you in that I never want to catch people by surprise or spend a day with them and then have them read something completely different. What I do is have a very, very like rigorous fact checking process, which I actually developed in college. Every single word has to A, mean something, but B, if it's a fact, like I will go check it and put like a little check on every word.
Mm.
So, for example,
Hmm.
Lehman Brothers failed in 2008. I'll go and like Google it just to make sure, even though I already know that, and still like,
Sure. Yeah. Just to give you that extra
and I do that
layer of,
with people. Yeah, like I do a fact check with every person that I interview.
and you do all that yourself. You don't have people helping you.
Just me.
Yeah. It's a, and do you read stuff out loud or do you,
Yes.
yeah. And
I go ahead.
tell me about that.
Yeah. Again, in college, one professor said that your ears will like catch what your eyes miss or something
Yeah.
along those lines. And every
Agree.
time when I write something, I print it out, I read it out loud. I'm like, oh, either that doesn't flow well. It's almost like music, right? Like that doesn't have a good flow, good rhythm. Let me change this sentence. But I do think it's basically the gap that I'm trying to fill is like the pieces that I wish I could read. I think that there used to be massive budgets for this kind of journalism, spend days, go there, travel, like see things, interview 25 people, 30 people. And I just think like it was almost a slippery slope. It was like, ooh, we can just do a phone interview. Ooh, we can just do a quick email interview and then Zoom
Yeah.
and this. And it's just like the quality starts to decline when the subjects can like they can be like, "Oh, this is who I am." And it's like if they tell you who they are and you don't see it, you don't observe it, you don't interview enough people, it's like a very
Yeah.
thin profile.
No, definitely, definitely. Um, I want to remind our audience, we have a great audience tonight,
Yes.
that it's not just me talking to Pauline, it's all of you. So please go into the question and answer box and enter your questions, and I will ask them of her. So please go ahead. We welcome that, and we don't need to wait till the end. We can start doing it right away.
We love
So now I
questions.
want to ask you a little bit. Well, I'm going to ask you about the business
Mhm.
side of Substack, but first I want to just go a little bit more into the journalistic aspect, which is um, you told me about trying to fill gaps, which I think is a very nice idea. Um, one of the things I watched recently was your interview with Kathy Wild from the
Mm,
Partnership for New York City.
yeah.
Tell me about how you chose her and how that came about. And I also want to ask you about the videos that you do in conjunction with the print interview and how involved you are in that, or how much that's outsourced and so on. So go ahead.
Yes. Okay, that's fair. So it is not just me. I do have someone who takes photos and does the video portion,
Yeah.
which has become like kind of like a mini documentary at the top.
Yeah.
Um, so Kathy is fascinating. So my husband and I were in New York. We moved to Miami for 2 years and we came back. When we came back, we both published these little articles on Substack about why we're coming back to New York. I love New York. Anybody who knows me knows that. So I wrote this like love letter to New York essentially, and she invited us to go have lunch with her.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, and Kathy, for those of you who don't know, she has been for 43 years the CEO of something called the Partnership for New York City. It represents the wealthiest people in the city. Um, and, you know, when there's a proposal, and she kind of works with the mayor, and she's a mediator almost. So we met with her. I thought what she was doing was interesting. Then I heard that she was retiring. And then I heard that she may go work with Mayor Zoran Mamdani. And I was like, wait a second, what? That's interesting. The person in charge of representing the biggest capitalists in the world is now going to work with the Democratic Socialist mayor. That I found that contradiction amazing.
Are you
I
saying
saw
that you found this out before you had settled on interviewing her, or was it
um,
around the same time?
No, actually, I wanted to interview her because I thought it was a good story in that I knew a little, I read a old profile of her about, I think it was in the New York Times, about how she used to be an activist when she first moved to
Yeah.
New York, and now she was this person. And then on the phone, she told me about Mamdani, and I was like, oh, definitely, let's do this.
Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah. So we got a few questions coming in.
Okay.
What is your favorite profile you have ever read and why?
Ooh, okay. Do you know Taffy Brodesser Ackner?
I know the name. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
she does, she uses, now she writes for TV, but she used to write celebrity profiles. And I'm not somebody who loves celebrities, but her profiles are like, she pairs journalism with deep psychology. So it's almost like
Mm,
a psychological examination of this person that you didn't think you cared about at all until you read this. And she is a master because she writes not just you observing the subject, but it's you observing her observe the subject. Fascinating. So she wrote
yeah.
one on Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop and how she built this $250 million empire based off of hate. People love to hate Gwyneth. And the
Yeah.
reason they love to hate Gwyneth that she exposed in this profile is that she breaks all these unspoken rules about what it means to be a rich white woman in business. Like she's not, there's this joke that usually when there's a celebrity profile of this thin, beautiful actress, it always opens with her eating a burger, like eating all the fries, ketchup on her face, like, oh, I'm just like you.
Mm,
But Gwyneth doesn't do that. She's like, I'm vegan, I'm perfect, I haven't touched a carb in 20 years. So, because of that, people don't like her, and we don't like reading
mm,
things like that. So, the whole article is basically Taffy holding up a mirror of her to us. And I think that's what the best profiles do is like ultimately, this person symbolizes something about us as a society, and we see all of our imperfections through them.
So it's basically it's a lot more layered and psychologically complex than your average profile, and that's part of what attracts you to it.
I
So
love the
now I'll
name.
ask you, I'm gonna take a question from the audience and add to it, which is
Okay.
what is the favorite subject you have done, the favorite profile you've done, and then are there other subjects out there that you would love to interview someday?
Yeah, so many.
Yeah, I bet.
I wish all of them. Okay, my favorite so far is actually the first one that I did last. year on Anthony Scaramucci. Wall Street. We know him as the 11-day stint as the White House communications director. The reason I think he is fascinating is that he has succeeded. He failed in public badly with Skybridge. Then he succeeded again with the White House and failed again when he got fired after 11 days. It, it's it's incredible. The name of the profile actually came to me before I even wrote it. The immortal Anthony Scaramucci, like this whole like idea of resurrection was a theme.
Yeah.
And then I read his book, and it very much sounded like the hero's journey. Like that's how he saw himself. And I
Yeah.
wanted to explore that. There were a lot of layers to his personality and a lot of things that my ideal subject is someone who people think they know
Oh,
because they're
yeah.
in public, but there's actually like a hidden element that I would love to expose. So the interesting thing about the Scaramucci profile was the reader feedback that I got was people went in thinking that they knew who he was, they were ready to dislike him, and they came away actually being like, "Whoa, you really humanized him for me. I actually get it." The humanizing and like the best compliment that I can get is this was accurate. Like, I don't want to
Yes.
flatter anybody. I don't want to write a hit piece on anybody. I just want somebody to read it, recognize themselves, and be like, even with the imperfections, like you get it.
Yeah, I read the Scaramucci
Oh, did you?
piece you did. I liked it, and I think you made a good point, which is that he's you see him warts and all. I mean, the guy's got a lot of issues,
Yeah.
but because you show all of him, people can say, he's kind of an asshole, but whatever. I sort of get it. I get it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was interesting, like somebody like that, where I genuinely think like some of the things that I saw that I didn't even include show his character. Like every single place we went, he went and stood up, shook the hand of the person, regardless if it was a waiter, an assistant, a front desk person, and asked them their name. And I know it wasn't performative because that's something I had heard before
Uh-huh.
I ever met him.
It's nice. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like little things like that that I'm like, oh, okay, like you're a good person, probably made some bad choices at some
Yes.
points in your career, but like who hasn't?
So, do you have tricks for breaking through people who have been interviewed many, many times? Like Scaramucci's one. Uh, certainly, the celebrities are a big problem because they've got their canned answers. How do you get past that?
Yeah, you want to destabilize them. I go in with like I know exactly how you're gonna answer. I want to like destabilize a little bit. So another profile I did last year was on Saquon Barkley, Eagles, NFL star. He was someone who's not very introspective, I would say. He doesn't
Hmm.
sit there and think about his life and why he's made certain decisions. But when I was talking to him, he was ready to just give me like surface level answers. And when I was talking to him, for example, I had done so much research that I knew that his dad almost had a professional boxing career in the 90s. But because he had a shoulder injury, he didn't have the money to get it fixed. And that
Mm,
ended his career. And now
mm.
here's Saquon, his son literally being like, I am playing with the idea of like, I want to make money and it's gonna last me a long time. But he's constantly thinking about like money and investing in football at the same time. And when I asked him about that, I was like, do you think that that played a role? And he was like, I've never thought about that, but like maybe.
Yeah.
So it's just like you want to ask questions that are non-obvious. And one question that I particularly like that makes people think is how has your life turned out? And how has it turned out differently than you expected it to? Because
Yeah.
that way, people kind of build a bridge between those two different realities. And
Yeah.
it tells you a lot about how they reason.
Fascinating, fascinating. Now, we're getting a lot of questions about business, which
Okay.
I definitely want to ask because, again, a lot of the members of the audience are journalists themselves who want to know whether they could ever make it. And I'm going to get to those, but before I get to them, there's something else I want to ask you. You tell me something that not everybody knows about you is that you have four children, which
They're
is
over there. Somebody's
just
probably screaming.
which is stunning. So tell us about how you possibly manage that.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Peter? Like my friend pointed this out, and I was like, oh, maybe you're right. So I grew up as an only child, so I don't know what I'm doing right now. But um, so we have a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and twins who are almost 6 months. When my daughter was born, I wrote a book. Then when my son was born, ran a half marathon. And then when the twins are born, I this time I took a break. But I really like stepped on the gas with the writing original profiles. Um I think that I love chaos. I think like that's the answer. I love the kids and I also love New York City. So it's like put them together and it's just like crazy. But I think like that's what keeps me alive. Today I did a podcast with Jim O'Shaughnessy and he said that he realized a long time ago that New York City, when somebody moves here from another place, either you feed off of the energy of the city or it feeds off of you. And I think that that's kind of how I approach like kids, life, working.
It's very impressive. And we have a question from a certain person you may know named Anthony Pompliano.
Who should be putting our son to sleep as we speak, but okay.
And here is his question. What are the pros and cons of working on your own instead of working at a big media company? Would you go solo if you did it all over again?
Man, we talked about this the other night. This is why he's asking. Um, so okay. The biggest challenge, obviously, when you go, and you know this, Peter, like when you go work for yourself, whether you freelance or you have your own business, um, you don't have the backing of a big media organization and that reputational pull.
Right,
So like make no mistake, I'm very aware that when I worked at Fortune, Melinda Gates responded to my email because it came from Paulina@fortune.com.
right.
When suddenly it's at readtheprofile.com, it's it's hard but not impossible. And I think it goes to like developing relationships, like I also think it can be a good thing to not have the baggage that comes with some of these media organizations and some of the things that they have written. I remember when Tim Urban, who was just a blogger at the time, now he's an author, all this stuff, he just had a blog called Wait But Why. He did a multi-part series on Neuralink, on Elon Musk's company. This was years ago. Fascinating. I read every word and it was so long, but so well reported. He went there, he saw, he talked, he explained, and and Elon gave him access to that, right? But he didn't have any
Yeah,
prior experience or reputation. That's good. Because then I remember in like 2020, I think Vanity Fair reached out to Elon Musk for a comment, and his response was like, Vanity Fair sucks. I think that was the comment. So it's like, okay, you don't know the reporter, but Vanity Fair to you has some sort of reputation that you don't like. So I would not go. I would do it exactly the same way that I did it. And I always thought about like leaving Fortune and doing this, even if it fails miserably, I will have learned more in the next 5 years doing this than I
yeah,
will staying at Fortune or doing another thing. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just go get another job, you know?
yeah. Yep, yep. Well, it has worked out.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good segue into some of the financial questions, which you must have been braced for receiving. So,
Yes.
Larry Carroll, one of our board members, asks, how much do you charge for subscription? How many subscribers do you have? And do you make enough money from Substack to live off of it?
Yes. Yes, the answer is yes. But so I told you I started in February of 2017. For 3 years, I just sent the newsletter for free. Like I never started it with the idea that I would one day leave my job. There wasn't a business in sight. So I started it, sending it for free every week for 3 years. Then in January of 2020, when Substack came around, and because I experimented with I was MailChimp, Tiny Letter, all those things. And then Substack was like, listen, this is for writers. We'll take care of the back end. You just write and you can charge these tiers. So I added for for the actual newsletter, I added an additional section that was podcast and video recommendations. I also said we'll do meetups every once in a while if become a member. And I always was careful to call people members and not subscribers, because I think it truly feels like a membership, right? Like you're part of something. And so I charged. So in the beginning, even though the founders of Substack told me not to, I just wanted to see. I was like, I'm gonna make it $100 a year, to see, if people would pay that, and $10 a month. They're like, that's too high. I was like, okay, let me try. I did it. And by the way, I was still working at Fortune. I shouldn't have been doing this, but I was like, ask for forgiveness later. So I tried the $100 a year. People wrote in, said that's too high. If you drop it to 50, I'll pay. And I was like, got it. Dropped it to 50. A bunch of people came. And so it was kind of like I kind of saw it, and then I modeled out for the next 6 months, if I grow at this rate, I will be able to replace my salary at Fortune. That's all I wanted to do. To success to me was replace my salary at Fortune. And so I did the math, how many monthly, how many yearly, and then founding members, of course, can pay 100. I had somebody early on pay 1,000, and I was like, wait, I think you made a mistake. And they're like, no, I just want to support independent journalists. I was like,
Nice.
fantastic. So there's no cap to that one. So then things kind of accelerated because, I left. My last day at Fortune was the first day of shutdown, like COVID shutdowns. And I was like, oh no, oh no, I did
Yeah.
not foresee this coming. Um, but as we all know now, Substack kind of took off. People had more time to read. People started paying for high quality stuff, content on the internet, and yeah, and so then I realized that it's actually, I will say that it's riskier in times of, I mean, I've seen, I've been around long enough to see the media cycles of people getting laid off, of people getting, those cycles where all your colleagues leave, like usually the most talented ones, and you're like, what? And you realize you're replaceable. And I knew that if Fortune ever fired me or laid me off, 100% of my income is gone. That's it. If you work for yourself, however, I have made money via, yes, Substack subscriptions. That's one part of it. Then I have syndication deals. Then I have speaking gigs. Then I wrote a book. Like all these things bring in revenue that I would have never had if I had just worked at one job where all my eggs are in that basket.
Yeah. Do you feel comfortable giving us a sense of how much you're making at this stage?
I haven't said, so no, no comment.
Okay. Had to ask.
Yeah, I know. Don't
Right.
want
Okay.
to.
And by the way, your husband is in Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So you have that to fall back on if everything falls apart, right?
I have not personally invested in any Bitcoin. I know nothing. I'm just a supporter of the space.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to move on to an obvious question, which is what would you recommend to people who are on this call? Oh, but before I do that,
Yeah.
once again, people want your questions, so please write in the Q&A and ask Polina anything you want. But let me ask you now,
Yeah.
what advice do you have for people who are thinking about going on Substack, or maybe they have a Substack, but it's free and they're wondering how they could make money off it?
I think that first and foremost, you have to have something that adds value. I mean, there are some Substacks that are incredibly successful and make millions of dollars doing recipes and salads and like things like that. And you're like, how? But there's such an appetite for these like niche but broad things. Um, I think the advice I would give is make sure that you own your destiny and your list. So, for example, like when you work at a traditional media company, it's great. You get the experience, you get the respect and the reputation, but when you leave, you don't get to take those readers with you.
Yeah.
I was lucky in that when I was writing term sheet, when I was leaving, I got to tell people, the readers of term sheet, hey, here's what I'm doing next. So a lot of
Yeah.
them subscribed. But then once they subscribed to the profile, now that's my list. So I was able to
Yes.
like transfer some readership with me. Usually people just disappear. Somebody leaves and goes somewhere else. You never hear from them again. So I think like you can be big on Instagram, you can be big on YouTube, but unless you own that email list, I feel like that's paramount. That's the most important thing you can do, because in the future, you have that ability to distribute whatever you were working on next.
Yeah. I mean, when I was at the Times, of course, I did not own my subscribers. When I left, I asked for permission to tell them that I was going on Substack, and they did. I give them a
Oh,
lot
they
of credit
did.
for that.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
got like 7,000 people signed up like the first day.
that's
Um,
crazy.
it was a good starting point. But you can't always count on that.
Yeah.
I was lucky that way.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there was a rule after some people leave. I think some organizations create a rule of like, let's chill on the Substacks on the side.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I you know, think I started mine before I left, but I wasn't really writing for it. It was like I didn't really get started writing on it until after I left the Times. So we're we're doing very nicely here. I'm learning a lot and really give you a lot of credit. Um, do you have a special engine? Do you have like a little like motor that drives you? Like what keeps you going? And you because you're doing a lot.
Yeah. I think that like I don't know. In my book I wrote about identity a lot, and I'm very uncomfortable if I'm one type of thing. So if
Mm.
I'm only this and people can like if somebody can describe me perfectly, I've kind of failed. I like to do a lot of different things. I like to, spend time with my kids and get on the phone. And like the other day, I was walking in Central Park with the double stroller, and someone called me, and I was like, oh, I got to interview them. So I had my recorder. So I did the, the thing in the park. Um, but yeah, like I think that especially Substack and especially going independent, like I know you write for so many different publications and you have your own, like it's you can do so much that you previously have never been able to do. And if you get the resources to reinvest in it, you can create some like really amazing journalism. And earlier we talked about the little mini documentary, mini video at the top of the profiles.
Those
I
are very
think,
nice, by the way. They're very professional.
thank
Well,
you.
the Kathy Wild one, well, actually the Scaramucci one too.
Yeah,
The Kathy Wild one just struck me as like nice standalone piece.
yeah.
But and so, how do you figure out the how to make those two things work together?
Yeah, so the photojournalist that I work with, we have a very like we had a conversation about I don't want the video to just summarize the piece because what's the point,
Yeah,
right? You
right.
should be able to read it standalone, and you should be able to watch the video standalone. So the whole idea is like he with Scaramucci and Sirhan, I asked the questions. He came with me during the shadowing, and he kind of got bits and pieces from that, but he told the story. And then with Kathy, we went on two separate occasions. So that was like his most interesting takeaways from her. And I thought it was good because she talks about different things in there than I do in my story.
Yeah. So, do you have ideas of what you want to do next from here, or what are your
Um,
thoughts?
what kind of Profile or
Either people you want to profile or just new directions you want to take.
yeah. So right now I am my paperback launch of my book, Hidden Genius, comes out this summer, but right now I'm just hyper focused on just writing more profiles. The next one that I have coming out is probably end of April. It's on two very colorful characters, is the way I'll describe it. They're brothers, and they're the original influencers, if any of you know. That's the hint I'll give, but it should be good. I've interviewed so far around 15 people. I have more to go. But yeah, I love the the nuance. Like I think early on, I remember at Fortune, my editor, Adam Lashinsky, I was writing an
Sure.
article, you know, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
writing an article on the title was the headline was How the Kleiner Perkins Empire Fell.
Mhm.
And it was kind of like this storied institution of Kleiner Perkins over the years, kind of made some disastrous bets that didn't work out. And they lost their touch, right? And at the time, um, and I turned in my draft, and he said, "What is this? Call me." And I was like, "Oh no." What do you mean, what is this? This is the best
Mm.
work that I've ever done. I talked to
Mhm.
so many people. I went there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like broke into this party place that they were supposed to have. The whole thing. I did it all, Peter. And then he said, call me. And I said, oh no. So his point that I've never forgotten is that I used to write in absolutes. It was a lot of, everybody, nobody, this never happened. This always happened. Things like that.
Uh-huh.
Absolutes.
Yeah.
And he said, basically, you need to be precise with every word. And basically, like, he said a version of this that my college professor said, which is, I can tell your thinking is sloppy because your writing is sloppy. And I do think that the way we write is how we think, which is why I'm nervous now with AI that does all of our thinking and writing for us, like what will happen. But it's very true. I think over the years, if you notice in my profiles, there's a lot of very specific things that are unique to that person because that's what makes them them. And that's what
Yes.
makes a story worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up AI actually, because I want to ask you,
Yeah.
are you using it at all? And if so, how?
I am using it. I'm using it for research mostly. And also, like for example, I have a human. Oh, no, I do work with another person. I have a human editor who reads all of my work. She's somebody who I used to work with at Fortune. And um, sometimes, so for example, when I send her my story pitch to review on a profile, sometimes I'll put it in ChatGPT and be like, do I have any blind spots here? Am I missing anything? Is there anything I'm not thinking about? It's helpful. It's kind of like I treat it as a research assistant. Sometimes I'll have all my background like research on this person, and then I'm like, is there anything I'm missing? Do they have any other controversies that I don't have? So I use it like that.
Sure, the research, not drafting stories
Right.
or anything like that. Yeah. We got a new question in from Greg Miles, one of the board members of the
Hi, Greg.
financial writers. How do you prepare for possible lawsuits for libel or other issues? Do you have a specific law firm representing you? Could you buy some kind of libel insurance?
Wow, what a great question. No, I personally don't, but we do like my husband's team, there is an in-house lawyer that I will consult. But I do a very, very, very rigorous fact check. Like I
Yeah.
get on Zoom with the person that I am profiling and I go through every single fact that they say yes, no, and then or here's my comment about this. So I try to prevent that if
The
possible.
best protection against a libel lawsuit is being correct.
Right. So far, knock on wood, don't jinx me. We're good.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. So I'm not going to go too much longer here. I'm definitely open to any more questions that come in,
Okay.
but I've really enjoyed the conversation. I wonder if you have any thoughts you want to leave for our audience.
My final thought is I think all these people that I've researched, whether it was for my book or that I've profiled or that I've interviewed before, I think that the common thread among all of them is that at some point in their life and their career, they've had to reinvent themselves and bet on themselves in some way where they were like, this could really, really be detrimental, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I think the most relevant people take a Martha Stewart, for example, like the fact
Sure.
that she is relevant to multiple generations, to my grandmother's generations, my mother's generation, and my generation, is like a master class in business. Most people forget that she went, to prison for insider trading. So it's incredible, like the fact that there's so many examples like that. Scaramucci's another one, but um, my husband and I like to joke that there's you before the fall, and then there's you after the fall, and those are two completely different people.